judge rejects State Assembly's request to probe Governor Fubara. Governor Makinde meets President Tinubu at Aso Rock Villa. 7 persons killed in Plateau State mining site attack. On the foreign scene, Zelensky says first trilateral meeting with US, Russia, Ukraine to take place tomorrow. Good evening. This is the news at 7 on Western Spring Television. My name is Damilola Raphael. We begin in Rivers State, where the Chief Judge, Justice Simeon C. Amadi, has declined a request by the Rivers State House of Assembly to constitute a 7-man investigative panel to probe allegations of gross misconduct against Governor Siminalayi Fubara and his deputy, Ngozi Nwaudu. Justice Amadi's position was conveyed in a formal letter addressed to the Speaker of the State Assembly, Martin Amehule, acknowledging receipt of 2 separate requests from the legislature dated January 16. Citing subsisting court orders on the pending appeal, he said, by the doctrine of lis pendens, parties and the court have to await the outcome of the appeal. Justice Amadi disclosed that his office had earlier been served with 2 interim injunctions issued by the Rivers State High Court on January 16. The interim orders expressly restrain the Chief Judge from receiving, forwarding, considering, or howsoever acting on any request, resolution, articles of impeachment, or other communication from the House of Assembly in relation to the impeachment process for a period of 7 days. Beyond the subsisting injunctions, he noted that the House of Assembly itself has filed an appeal against the interim orders at the Court of Appeal, stating that all persons are obligated to obey valid court orders until they are set aside. In the meantime, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has accused the Senate of deliberately frustrating efforts to amend the Electoral Act 2022, warning that continued delays would undermine the credibility of the 2027 general elections. In a statement shared on his X on Thursday, Atiku described loopholes in the current Electoral Act as a major setback in the 2023 elections. He argued that they enabled widespread electoral malpractice and made it difficult for petitioners to prove their cases in court. He stressed that urgent legislative action was required if similar challenges were to be avoided in future polls, particularly the 2027 elections. The former presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, alleged that the Senate was intentionally blocking the passage of proposed amendments to the Act. He further warned that failure to amend the law ahead of 2027 would amount to a deliberate attempt to compromise the electoral process. The Electoral Act 2022, signed into law in February 2022, currently governs the conduct of elections in Nigeria. Governor Seyi Makinde of Oyo State this afternoon met with President Bola Tinubu at the Aso Rock Villa, raising fresh political speculation amid ongoing realignment ahead of the 2027 elections. Governor Makinde, a leader of the opposition People's Democratic Party, PDP, arrived at the State House shortly after the Plateau State Governor, Caleb Mutfwang, who recently defected from the PDP to the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, and proceeded directly to the president's office. The Oyo State governor was one of 5 PDP governors, popularly known as the G5, who opposed the emergence of Atiku Abubakar as the PDP's presidential candidate in the 2023 election and backed APC's Tinubu emergence as president. However, Governor Makinde and his former ally and member of the defunct G5, former Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike, have since fallen out. In a recent interview, the Oyo governor said the rift stemmed from a meeting involving President Tinubu in which Wike allegedly pledged to hold PDP from the president ahead of the 2027 election without the consent of other party stakeholders. As of the time of filing this report, the agenda of the meeting between President Tinubu and Governor Makinde had not been disclosed. To security, 7 persons have been confirmed dead following an overnight attack on an illegal mining site at Capitex, Kuru community Jos South local government area of Plateau State. According to the Nigerian army, the attack occurred at about 1 a.m. when suspected armed bandits stormed the site with the intention of carting away illegally mined minerals. Troops of Sector 6 Operation Safe Haven were alerted to the incident at about 8:40 a.m. by a local resident and immediately mobilized to the area to restore normalcy. A top military source said security personnel recovered ammunition at the scene during a sweep of the area. The source disclosed that the bodies of the victims were evacuated to the primary healthcare center in Dabuakuro for documentation and burial arrangements by their families. The source added that preliminary investigations indicate that the victims were engaged in illegal mining activities and had remained at the site late into the night in violation of the Plateau State government ban on illegal and night mining. In another development, Nigeria has unveiled a sweeping macro strategy that places food security at the heart of national stability, inflation control, and regional cohesion, with Vice President Kashim Shettima declaring that the country no longer views the issues through a narrow agricultural lens. Speaking at a high-level panel during the World Economic Forum in Davos, the Vice President says the federal government has begun a multidimensional agricultural drive designed to insulate Nigeria from global shocks while restoring productivity across its food basket regions. According to a statement by spokesperson Stanley Nkwocha, Shettima says the government does not look at food security purely as an agricultural issue, but a macroeconomic, security, and governance issue. He noted that the focus of the government is to use food security as a pillar for national security, regional cohesion, and stability. He explained that Nigeria's food security strategy rests on 3 pillars: increased food production, environmental stability, and deeper regional integration within West Africa.
In Nigeria, we don't look at food security purely as an agricultural issue. It's a macroeconomic, a security, and governance issue. And our major focus on food security is to use it as a pillar for national security, for regional cohesion, and anchor it on 3 principal pillars: improved food production, improved environmental production, and of course, regional integration within the West African sub-region. Because of the peculiarities of the global trend, we have no option to really look inwards towards the position in our agricultural industry. And I will just dwell on 4 or 5 key areas: resilient agricultural system in our different ecological zones. Nigeria is big, and there is an incestuous relationship between economy and ecology in the Sahelian zone. And in the north of Nigeria, we are facing problems of desertification, deforestation, and drought. In the riverine areas in the southern part of the country and in the north central, we have issues of flooding. So what are the solutions? We have to look for drought resistant, drought tolerant, and early maturing varieties of rice, sorghum, millet. And for the southern part of the country, the riverine communities, we have to look for food systems that are flood-resistant rice and cassava that can do well in that part of the world. And secondly, and most importantly, we have to do with security challenge areas. And these are largely the food basket of our nation. So the government is making efforts towards forming food security corridors and community-based security engagement to allow our people to go back and till the soil. And there is a new program being conceived and executed by the government. And that has to do with Back to the Farm initiative, so that our displaced people can be supplied with inputs, with insurance, with capital, to go back for food.
To the court, the legal battle over the suspension of the lawmaker representing Kogi Central, Senator Natasha Akutinuaga, has escalated as the Senate President Godswill Akpabio has again approached the Supreme Court. Court documents cited today show that Akpabio filed an application before the Apex Court to regularize and sustain his appeal, challenging decisions of the lower courts on the matter. Akpabio is listed as the appellant, while the respondents are Akpotiuduaghan, the Clerk of the National Assembly, the Senate, and the Chairman of the Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges, and Public Petitions, Senator Neda Imasuen. The dispute arose from a February 2025 plenary session during which Akpotiuduaghan raised issues of privilege and alleged procedural breaches. The matter was referred to the Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges, and Public Petitions, which later recommended her suspension. Dissatisfied, the lawmaker approached the Federal High Court in Abuja, alleging a breach of her rights to a fair hearing and non-compliance with the Senate's standing orders. In its judgment, the court faulted the suspension, describing it as excessive. Senator Akpotiuduaghan resumed duties on September 23, 2025, after completing a 6-month suspension and regaining access to her office at the National Assembly. The trial over the alleged defamation of President Bola Tinubu by human rights activist Omoyele Sowore officially opened with the Department of State Services, DSS, calling its first witness. The witness, Cyril Nosike, an official of the DSS, told the court that a false claim made by Sowore against President Bola Tinubu, in which he described the president as a criminal, generated tension and threatened public safety. Nosike, who was led in evidence by the prosecuting lawyer, Akinloluke Ndeyeseyan, said in the course of his duty on August 26, 2025 at the Cyberspace Monitoring Center, he detected and monitored a post by the defendant Sowore on his X platform. The witness says that when he came across the video allegedly posted by Sowore, under which the statement was written, he downloaded it, saved it on a flash drive, and marked it XYZ. Nosike further told the court that the DSS sent an official letter to the defendant through his lawyers who acknowledged receipt. He said the letter demanded that Sowore retract the post. At the conclusion of his evidence in chief, the court invited counsel to Sowore, Marshal Abubakar, to proceed with cross-examination of the witness. He, however, asked the court for time to enable him to study the witness's testimony. Justice Mohammed Umar subsequently adjourned the case to January 27 for cross-examination and continuation of hearing. In the meantime, the Supreme Court has dismissed the trial of the former Chief Security Officer to ex-military head of state, General Sani Abacha, Major Hamza Al-Mustafa, retired in the murder of Kudirat Abiola. During proceeding, Lagos State was slated to reopen the trial, but no legal representation was made, while no process was filed since 2014 when the order to reopen the case was granted in its favor. Paul Daudo, counsel to Al-Mustafa, informed the justices of the Apex Court that Lagos State has not taken any step to implement the order granted it in 2014 to reopen the trial. Daudo said that not even a notice of appeal was filed by the state as the appellant to demonstrate its seriousness to prosecute the trial. Justice Wani Abaji, who presided over the matter, sought to know if Lagos State was served with hearing notice. The registrar of the court answered in the affirmative. In a unanimous decision, the Supreme Court agreed that Lagos State has lost interest in the matter and consequently abandoned it. Justice Abaji held that 9 years was long enough for the appellant to have filed notice of appeal and the brief of appeal in the matter. Moving on, Air Peace has reported a disruption of its Lagos to Port Harcourt flight by bird strike on Thursday. A statement by the airline said the incident was recorded on the arrival of its aircraft at the Port Harcourt International Airport. According to its spokesperson, Osifo Whiskey FA, the incident necessitated safety checks on the affected aircraft and the deployment of another aircraft to convey passengers on subsequent flights. Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of the airline, Allen Oyema, has consistently lamented that bird strikes constituted a major operational challenge. According to him, the incidents often led to costly repairs and serious disruptions to flight schedules. In December 2025, Air Peace disclosed that it recorded 49 bird strikes across Nigeria between January and September, stressing that even a single strike could ground an aircraft for weeks. Still to come, NERC raises alarm over rising cases of electricity-related deaths. We will bring you more on this when we return.